welcome back to Japan and to our reaction and review of the brand new, at the time of recording, WAGAKKI band song Queen of the Night. And as always, this is the review video. If you want to see the reaction that I've just done, pause this video, click the little link in the description below, and it will open up a separate little YouTube player where you can watch the reaction just in case you haven't heard the song before, or you just want to see how my face reacted when I first heard it. You know how reactions work, right? Because otherwise, here comes the review. Are you ready for the review? Don't say I didn't warn you. Here comes the review. Pause this if you need to. Too late. Here we go. So, this was actually quite interesting because, like I say, often with WAGAKKI bands, I love this sound as a general, but it's not to say they don't change their sound in a little way. Sometimes there's more obvious ones where they go a little bit more rocky or they do something a bit jazzy. Sometimes, there'll be louder songs and quieter songs, but they tend to alter their formula in different ways. But this, on its core, just sounds like they're WAGAKKI band being WAGAKKI band. But there were some interesting things that came up in this song that I really didn't expect that made it just sound so wonderful. Now, I did a video recently actually where I was talking about what makes a band sound special, and I was actually in that trying to be fair about the positives and negatives of different types of band sounds. And one of the things I brought up was in regards to WAGAKKI band. I'd heard from people on our Discord community that one of the things that people didn't like is they felt that WAGAKKI band didn't feel like it had much impact. And I tried to look into this opinion and try and understand it, and I could kind of see how, because there's so much happening at any one time, what for me is a beautiful sort of plethora of sounds, for some people just sounds like nothing's really having as much impact, nothing's cutting through, nothing's connecting as much with the listener. And I do get that. I drew the comparison to like an orchestra. When you listen to an orchestra, as talented as every member is, there's no one member of the orchestra who's really sort of connecting with you in that kind of way. I get it. It's a very different way of listening to music. So what really intrigued me, this almost feels like a direct answer. I'm sure it was recorded long before that video, but it almost feels like a direct answer to that actual comment, because when this comes in, it starts off, as a lot of their songs do, with just sort of the traditional sort of Japanese music sound. Now, I'm someone, I really enjoy actually traditional Japanese music. As many of you know, I play the koto. I used to play a shamisen, but I don't have one here anymore, too much moving. Can't play a shakuhachi. That's really difficult. It just sounds like a fart every time I do it. Really bad at that. But so, I really love that style of music. And one of the things that really works is it has what I often describe as a certain tangibility. There are certain instruments where, when played properly, and especially when recorded properly, you can always feel the mechanics of it. You can feel the context. You can feel the sort of feeling of the musician going into the strings or into the notes, just however the instrument's played. This is something which is usually easiest to tell from singers, because obviously singers, their voice is their instrument, so you can really hear everything about the way they sing. And often why Yuko Suzuhana, I think she has such a fantastic voice. She sings not just technically well, but with you can really feel everything, as is the style of singing anyway. The sort of vibrato and everything really brings out a lot of feeling. Now, this song starts off in that sort of traditional sound where you can really feel it all, but whereas a lot of WAGAKKI band songs then sort of come in and then you get the impact of the size, the scale, this kind of stays delicate throughout. Now, this again brings me to another thing that I was talking about in previous videos, and where this song really actually ends up having quite a wonderful sound, is that when you have a big arrangement with lots of things happening at the same time, obviously when you're sort of setting the EQ for each instrument, you're working out where in the frequency that instrument's going to sit. Bassier instruments, you try to push them into a bassier range. You try and clear room for everything in the frequency range. I will be doing a video about EQing actually sometime soon as well, so I'll go into that in more detail then. But when you've got obviously a big arrangement, each instrument, each thing sounds a bit thinner. A lot of people have said that when you listen to singers in rock bands, usually they'll have this big full voice when you hear them a cappella, but when you hear them in the actual music, their voice often sounds thinner, and that's because their voice is being sort of moved into an EQ space away from the guitar, so that the guitar and the voice don't crush on top of each other and kind of sound muddy. And the same can be said of Yuko Suzuhana. I've noticed that although her voice is so fantastically full when you hear her a cappella, in a lot of WAGAKKI band songs, her voice does sound a bit thinner, because obviously there's so many other sounds, they're finding her the space in it. Now, in this song, because it's all quite delicate because the arrangement's quite light. Sounds are coming in and going out, but it's sort of not too much happening together at the same time. You end up with something where each of the instruments sounds more full. It feels like it's covering more frequency. You're hearing the delicacy, you're hearing the light touches on the koto strings, especially on the shamisen, actually. The shamisen, that really came across lovely. I love that you could really hear the sort of the increase in volume as it just sort of builds up and goes down at various points. Everything, even her voice. Her voice, which I always love, just here you really got that feeling for just how beautiful it is. I've heard her sing a cappella a few times before, which is amazing, but it's lovely. You can really get that full sense of her voice in this song. And that's no criticism to the other songs. It's just that's where you have to mix something, which is really, really big. I just think that in this song, by it being a more light arrangement, it made more room for each of the instruments to be more directly heard, which was lovely. I mean, again, I can't say enough. I love their usual sound. I think it's fantastic. But this is a nice counterbalance in that everything was really, really not just clear to hear, but also very full. All the instruments sounded full. They didn't sound like they were being mixed so much to avoid each other. So tonally, just you got the feeling of just how beautiful all these instruments are and how beautiful her voice is in this song. It just, like I say, it was just something where above and beyond the songwriting, just the sound of it was just gorgeous. So I loved it for that reason. Now, when it comes to the songwriting, this goes into that sort of strange little valley of things that it can come up with ballads, which I would kind of consider this to be something of a melodramatic ballad, but a ballad nonetheless. It was, again, I don't want to say this overtly as a criticism, although I can see for some people why this would be a bad thing. The melody, the way it was written was very sort of simple, by the numbers sort of thing. It wasn't going for anything particularly unusual. It was just sort of simple, gentle chord pattern movement with a fairly gentle, normal sort of melody. But for me, it did just sort of sound like a really, really good, so almost catchy, but very easy to follow melody. It had that quality to associate with, I don't want to say a nursery rhyme, but kind of like a traditional song where it just kind of flows abnormally easily. And so it becomes just very easy to listen to. So yeah, nothing sort of world changing about the way this was written, but I think that the ease of which it flowed, the fact that everything felt so natural and sort of simple but right, that was kind of, a good complementary. I can imagine that both that style of melody writing and the sound that they sort of had going on in this song kind of both came from the same initial idea, because everything about this was just very sort of easy to listen to, uncomplicated, undemanding, and yet just there to highlight what a good, simple melody with beautiful sounds can sound like. And that's really what this comes down to, despite all of my waffle and trying to justify my opinions, as we always do here. Really what this is about, easy to listen to, I think, I've got to say, universally enjoyable melody. I can't see how anyone would say that wasn't a nice melody, combined with just universally beautiful sounds. Is this, to me, for all of their other stuff, which has got such a wow factor, where they're really just bringing the most out of everything, this to me was an example of just sort of settling back and just allowing the sound to be simple and beautiful. And yeah, I loved it. I thought certainly works brilliantly as a counter to their other material as well. It's a nice sort of contrast, nice to hear them doing something a little bit different on that side. But yeah, I remain just sort of always permanently astounded at how lovely their arrangements are and how great they sound as a band. So yeah, we don't always kiss ass. Like I say, I try to see things from fair opinion. I know that I just naturally kind of like this band. I've probably got a little bit of an innate bias towards anything that sounds this way. But I can see why for some people the melody might be simple enough to be kind of dull. I can see for some people why, if you're not naturally into that kind of Japanese music sound, this is just not going to really appeal to you. I mean, the traditional Japanese music sound. So I can see why people wouldn't like this, why some people would probably even find this boring. But for me, beautiful, relaxing, just gorgeous soundscape and well executed. So anyway, as always, like I said, I can see other people's opinions, so let me know your opinions. Get in the comments, tell me what you think. I've already seen people talking about this on the Discord already, which is why I was like, I need to review this quickly before I get too many hints. And, you know, so yeah, tell me what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe if you'd like to as well, because it's YouTube, you know how it works. We're a small, unmonetized channel, so, you know, anything that helps our algorithmic stats is always nice, especially since we had to restart everything. Obviously, talking about that kind of thing, big thank you as well to all of our Patreon followers, because, like I say, we're not monetized, so you guys really do keep your channel alive. If you want to get involved in any of our social medias, just to talk with other people who like Japanese music as well, they're all linked in the description below also. And just a big thank you for making it through to the end of this big old waffly video. So until I hopefully see you soon in Japan for the next one of these ones, for now, ciao ciao.